Hey guys, it's Istebrak. Today I'll be demonstrating how I use Portrait Studio and the mannequin in Portrait Studio for my personal sketches. A quick reminder, Portrait Studio will be on sale starting October 1st at almost 50% off. So if you don't currently own Portrait Studio and want to kind of explore character design the way I do, wait for the sale. It'll launch midnight September 30th on my website, istebrak.com, on the store tab. So a lot of you ask me how I kind of wrap my head around my sketches, those hand sketches that I do for the jungle girls or those rabid girls that I draw. They're usually warrior princess type characters. I love sketching those. I usually just get the itch to sketch them sometime around the end of the year or the start of the year. I usually just do a big campaign of hand sketches. Usually when I'm on vacation and I don't really feel like rendering faces anymore. I don't feel like studying volume with just shades. I study volume with lines. I kind of just try those sketches. I use my sketching brushes, and then I just go in. And a lot of you wonder how I figure my the figures out, how I figure out the anatomy. The most important thing to do is always to try sketching everything out roughly, not worry about being clean. Make sure that you are figuring out the gesture, the motion, the attitude, the lean, whatever it is that's making that specific character speak through their gesture. It's not about their face, it's not about their costume, it's about their gesture. So gesture studies is where it gets really difficult, because managing gesture, fluid gesture, flexible gesture, with open or closed gesture, energy, even though it's explosive energy or a still energy, is hard to figure all out with just a bunch of messy lines. You need references, you need a good understanding of anatomy, so reference for the gesture, reference for anatomy groups. You need a good understanding of costume and culture that you're representing, and expression. A lot of acting knowledge and expression knowledge through the body language knowledge. And then just good understanding of age anatomy. If you're going for a specific age, there's shortness, head size, proportion. So body type, athletic body type, what is it that you're going for? It's a lot to manage. And what I want to do is just show you how I figure all of that out. Building a reference is the most important thing. I think building a body of references and a mood board, it helps boost how vividly in your mind you see the character in all their detail. The best thing to do is try to visualize them in your mind. See the character in your mind before you sketch them out. Or else you're just guessing your way through the sketch phase, and even that might look, even though it's sketch phase and it's loose-handed, it still might look stiff. So you're seeing everything in your mind, from the expression to the atmosphere and the attitude, and this all starts with like writing. Writing the character, character building, thinking of a narrative. What's their purpose in life? What is it that they're after? So some of the ways we build references is to Google references. So Googling pictures. It's great to Google pictures, but what I recommend and how I Google pictures for anything, not just for my hand sketches, I don't Google the pose or the character keyword. Like if I'm going for a warrior princess or a jungle tribal character girl or a warrior character tribal girl, I don't Google like that. What I Google is the occupation. I Google their occupation or athletic equivalent or trope equivalent in real life. So instead of Googling tribal jungle girl, I'll Google athletic long jump, or I'll Google like a pole vault, or I'll Google a tutorial on fencing, or a tutorial on how to, and then blank, whatever the character is going to be, their strength core. What is their strength in that scene? So how to shot put. And because I Googled how to shot put on YouTube, I'll probably get a result of someone demonstrating a shot put, like, pose or form or how to do it. And then I'm sure they'll have the body type for it. And then that's what I'm going to be referencing. That's my pool of referencing. It also inspires me for gestures. So I don't know what gestures to give a character who does this occupation unless I see the occupation happen in front of me, unless I see the activity. So that helps give me gesture references as well as body type references, and then gesture references for the activity itself. It's not just always going to be a girl holding a spear, leaning on one leg, really cool. That's really the boring stuff that I try not to do. It's going to be a girl doing the activity, and then all of her motion, how it affects her costume, what she's wearing, comes after. And how everything kind of just works together in the end. So Googling their occupation or athletic equivalent or trope equivalent in real life is the best way really to get good results on Google. So I Googled athletic jump for this character, and those are the results that I got. Don't Google your character, because you'll either end up copying someone else's drawing or finding like disgustingly stiff stock images. Look for something active. Once you find your pose, bring it into Portrait Studio. So if you feel like you found a pose, the male version, and you're trying to pose a female, what you can do is create the pose that you've referenced as a male with the female mannequin, and still build it with the female mannequin and get all the female gender cues you need for your reference. So the thin waist, the smaller upper body. If the pose you found is also not exactly perfect, you can always adjust it as you need to. So the hand might be a little bit off, wrist not turned, arms not holding something. You can pose the fingers in Portrait Studio on the mannequins if they're holding something. You can also bring in a spear or a dagger or something like that with the shapes that you can adjust in the form studies, or a sword that we've also made, and a bow. If the breasts aren't big enough or the upper body's not small enough, especially for the actual pose, this means like camera angle. So the pose is being fixed in the camera angle. So you may have found a good Google reference for the pose. It may be male, you want it as female, you can fix that, and you can fix the camera angle. If you need the angle to be lower for cinematic purposes, you can make it lower, higher. There's also a really fun perspective for standing character design sketches that I could never really understand until I started using Portrait Studio. It's a standing gesture that a lot of artists I admire use, such as Evan Mehlamunson, I don't know if you guys know about him, and Eliza on Instagram. They do the standing gesture where the upper body is level with the camera or higher, but the lower body is lower than the camera, which means we can see the top of their feet. So this one I couldn't figure out, and then I realized that I love this style so much because it's got this warped kind of close-up fisheye lens perspective, so you can still see some of the features that you're designing in the character and have like a really cool perspective added, that they're actually standing in front of you and you're looking at their feet and you can see the top of their feet. Not a perfect level from head to toe, because that wouldn't make any sense. The character would have to be really small, level with our eye, for us to see from head to toe the same perspective. But we're standing beside someone, which feels more interactive in a character design. Their head is level with us, but our head is higher than their lower body. So that's kind of something you can do if you use the field of view on Portrait Studio. You can build all your references, get your pose, get all that referencing, that stuff done after Google Images, and then pose it in Portrait Studio and turn on the field of view, zoom back in, and you'll have the that pose that I talk about, that really great pose. Another educational way to interact with Portrait Studio is to get your picture, get your screenshot of your desired pose after you're done posing it, and sketch over it. Draw your costume over it. Figure out how you're going to wrap around the costume, around the torso, around the thighs, around the arms. For educational purposes, there's full steam ahead. Trace as much as you want. But the biggest idea behind why these characters look solid is because the narrative is matched with the pose. You always want to do that as much as possible. And planning the pose, making sure you're firing on all cylinders, you cover all your bases, or any metaphor that applies thereafter. You figured all that stuff up, then you can talk about detail. Sometimes when it comes to like how much symmetry I want to use, for instance, for the short, stout warrior, I liked how symmetrical she was, because she was kind of really obsessed with being successful in her, conquest. She's really trained herself. She's made up for her shortness by having brute strength. She's very strong. She's hard as a rock, as tough as an ox. So giving her the horns to represent her as a short, stubborn ox, or a bull, that also helped illustrate her personality a little bit better. But nothing does this better than the pose with her chest out and her shoulders back. That's really what made her pushed the bull horns even further and made them look more active, looked like I really was matching costume with pose. That's what I mean when I say everything has to be in sync. She can't be smiling there all proud of herself. I don't think she smiles that much, or she tries not to anyway. She's kind of like a tough Vegeta type character. I think I really see a lot of Vegeta in her. I also adjusted my mannequin to be short and stout like her. She's short, stout, tank. This character, I love her so much. And she always takes on guys that are bigger than her. She's always biting more than she can chew. She's a bit angry, short, kind of blows her top a lot. Sometimes she loses in fights, sometimes she wins. She's fueled by anger and rage and shortness. and boar meat and anger and pride. Like, she's very, very proud of herself and a little bit weaker than she wants to be. So I tried to kind of make up for her short nature by sticking her chest out. Usually short people do that. I gave her that really severe angry scowl. I gave her that kind of pride in her mouth. There's her kind of like smacking away at her chest plate, kind of trying to make noise. She's ready for battle. She's ready for a fight. All of that, again, is me reflecting the narrative through the pose, and the pose reflects the character, and the character is in the expression, and the expression is in the costume, and the costume is a part of the pose. Everything is synced together. That's really what makes a character design sketch more successful, when everything is working together. For the girl beside her, she has these swords and daggers. She's a little bit more decorated. She's more like a princess. Kind of going on a hunt together with some family. Maybe she's royalty. For the one in the distance, she's very proud, contemplative. Not necessarily the strongest girl in the tribe, but she is very wise, and she's very beautiful. So she's an object of beauty. I try not to, as you can see, exaggerate the waistline or the chest for characters that are younger or characters that are short and stout and not really about the sex appeal. I tried to keep things a little bit more closer to a boy body in the spectrum, but still a girl, for characters that are more strength, more brute strength. Some characters have that femme fatale, so I still have to give them the brute strength at the same time. Not as much brute strength as I would give the character who does not have any sex appeal. That's more cute than sexy. Which is, again, matching the character with their story. Always ask the story. The best sketches in these, I think, is the first one, who is the proud one, and then who's also very beautiful, like an Aphrodite, and then the short stout one. I think those are the most successful. People really responded to the two because they had the most synced character design, narrative, pose. All the levels of creation were all synced together, reflecting the same story. You have to be as consistent as possible. So there's a consistency in their life that we're representing when we design them. So that's how I use Portrait Studio to help me pose my characters. It's just me knowing what I want to see in my mind. So you're not going to really know what to pose with Portrait Studio unless you see it. But if you do have more of an experimental field study, kind of just throwing together some poses and seeing if you like them, you can always do it that way. And if something inspires you, you see it as a character, you can always go in that direction. I wanted to show you some of the other ways my viewers have used Portrait Studio. Jerome Jacinto, one of our resident professionals in this community, has used Portrait Studio a number of times, and he's used it specifically to complete a page from his comic strip for his Kickstarter. So to remind you guys again, Portrait Studio will be on sale October 1st at almost 50% off, so if you don't own it, wait. I hope the sale is more manageable for you guys than the full price. It's going to be going on for 2 weeks, from the 1st to the 14th. The 14th will be the last day of the sale, unfortunately. I might have a smaller version of the sale in December. I thank you all for supporting us and purchasing Portrait Studio. I couldn't do this without you guys. I'll see you all in class. Bye.